Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Capito for having this important hearing on this important nomination. I'm just going to build off a little bit of what Senator Capito was asking you about. I'm still not really sure what your standard is. When she quoted the 1974 the Atomic Energy Act, she quoted the reasonable assurance of adequate protection, and I'm not really sure where you are in that. You're waiting for a new rulemaking, and yet there's a long, as you said, things are getting safer, not less. So I want to go back to your voting record. I sort of take from your opening statement the fact that things are moving better than they have been since you've been on the commission, all of that, and I don't want to oversimplify your words, but your voting record, you've been the sole dissenter, not just in the one that Shelley was talking about, but a number of times, including against the development of a more generic EIS that could help speed up some of this. Not even about speeding it up, it's about streamlining, keeping it safe, but streamlining, recognizing that in these smaller reactors, you maybe can have a little more generic process. I think brought up the emergency planning requirements rule, right? Your sole vote against updating the NRC's guidance to provide increasing flexibility. I think flexibility, getting back to the local community and other things, flexibility is really, really important. I'm just concerned that you're the one impediment on the NRC, not the one that's truly an advocate for advancing safely, advancing this important technology to meet the climate and energy security goals that you spoke about in your opening statement. Can you just respond a little bit to that? Is that a justified concern by me?
Well, I appreciate your concern. I've been on the commission a while now, and I've been on a lot of issues in the minority and a lot of issues in the majority. I prefer when my view prevails, but that's life on a commission. Sometimes you're on the dissenting side, and sometimes not. Let me just take one of those because I think it's really an important issue, which is generic environmental impact statement for advanced reactors. I think that's an important one. I was skeptical of that when that proposal was made. I really doubted that was going to be useful. It was going to take a lot of work, and I wasn't sure it was going to be that helpful because my conception of what it was going to be is how much environmental analysis can you really do without knowing the site, without knowing the design, without knowing the size, any of the safety features. What the staff did, though, I think they did a really good job on it, and we have this before us now. I voted on this. It's not out yet because there's still votes pending, but they did a good job. And what they did, instead of trying to do a full kind of environmental analysis like you'd imagine it, very specific to anything, they came up with, for each of the resource areas, they came up with basically entry criteria. If you have a site that would do this, we can make these findings. If you have a reactor that meets this, we can make this finding on noise, or this finding on land effects or aquatic. And so I support finalizing that. I think it's a good product. I was really pleasantly surprised at what the staff came up with. And I do think it will be useful because it's going to narrow, if used well, and hopefully it will work, narrow the issues that need to be resolved for each individual reactor application that comes in. And so I think that's heading in the right direction. And maybe I was overly skeptical about that to begin with because I think it's a good product the staff has put together.
It sounds like a good process, a good direction, because we need to do things quicker. I mean, we really do, to have that type of security that you talked about, and to meet the climate goals that several of you share. I may have to wait for another round to get to everything I want to talk about, but you've been such a strong advocate for environmental justice, to the point of advocating for maybe having an advisory committee right in the NRC that on the topic. You've commended a couple times. In fact, I have the transcripts of your last two speeches before the regulatory conference where you lauded the White House's Office on Environmental Justice. And I'm just worried that as a regulator, having been one for 10 years, an elected one, albeit, but an all-the-above energy state like North Dakota, doing resource planning that included nuclear from Minnesota as well as clean coal from North Dakota and natural gas, wind, solar, you name it, we did it all. That when the regulatory agency gets involved in sort of more the political policy side of things, you become more of an impediment to the advancement of this technology than you do an advocate for. And we shouldn't be advocates either, obviously, as regulators. But again, is my concern justified, given your record both in voting and the public comments you've made relating to environmental justice?
Well, I definitely don't see pursuing environmental justice as an impediment to the existing fleet or to new reactors. I really see it as something that's going to benefit all stakeholders. And so the staff, I'll just briefly give maybe 10 seconds on the process the staff followed. They, over several months, did a kind of big review of NRC's policies and procedures and activities. They talked to a ton of stakeholders. They got public comments. They did written comments. They did public meetings and all kinds of outreach. And they got a lot of feedback. And they used all that to come up with several, I think, very good recommendations. One of them is for an advisory committee. We have a couple advisory committees at NRC that I think are very useful. I think this one could be as well. But I don't think, kind of going back to the Atomic Energy Act, we don't have, under the Atomic Energy Act, the latitude to consider environmental justice as a licensing factor, right? I don't think anyone's contemplating that. That wouldn't work under our statutory authority. What we're focused on are the processes we have, the ways we interact with the public. NRC is a complicated agency. We've got really complicated processes, and I think a lot of stakeholders, EJ communities, but everyone struggle sometimes to navigate all that. And the main thrust, I think, of our environmental justice approach is to make the agency more accessible to everyone, not just one set of groups, but everyone, so that people can navigate all that and figure out if they have a concern, how do they pursue it, or if they want to make a comment, how do they do that, and understand what we're doing, because it's complicated stuff, and our processes haven't made that easy over the years.
Process matters for sure. Mr. Chairman, thank you. He actually answered the question I would have asked if you'd have given me another minute. So thank you.